7:14 on this Tuesday.
Dale, you may not know this, but it's quite possible that we're being listened to in the Czech Republic right now.
Well, good.
Yeah, my family's wife and kids are over there visiting the in-laws as they do every summer, and was on Skype earlier because I think Tomasz wants to tune in because he wrote Senator Cotton about his dislike for the park testing and Common Core. Talk about Bloomy. Yeah, he came home one day and he goes, "Dad, I don't like park testing. I don't have to put up with this. I'm writing Senator Tom Cotton." And I said, "What?" I didn't even know he knew who he was. And he says, "If I write him a letter, will you mail it?" And I thought, well, that's a good civics lesson. I'm sure. Yeah. So he wrote a very, very nice letter, and I mailed it off and forgot all about it. And about 2 weeks, I see this letter in my mailbox with like this gold embossed writing, office of the senator. I thought, oh Lord. So I opened it up, and it was a nice response to him. And so for everybody in that country, Dobrý den, Česká republika.
Welcome aboard, everybody.
That's your Czech lesson for today.
Well, I tell you what, and I'm sure the senator took it to heart too.
He did. I mean, it looked, as best I could tell, it looked like a personal response and had it look like a real signature on it. So one of his constituents from Arkansas wrote him, and he responded. So
there you go. Well, it's like having the children, the students here from Christian Academy doing the prayer. Yeah. And Governor Hutchinson recognized those young people. Mm-hmm. We got a complete list, sent it into the governor's office, and he hand-signed a letter. And each letter, it was addressed to your student, Dear Kim, Dear Sam, Dear Dale, whatever. Yeah. And it wasn't, you could tell it wasn't the machine stamp letter. It was hand-signed by the governor. Right. And the mayor and I went down and passed those letters out.
The good thing about that is to me, the light went on that he, that my son had made the connection between representation, governmental representation.
That's good.
And so if you don't like something in the school system or whatever, you write your senator and see what can be done. So
I was sitting in a local fast food restaurant this past week, and there's 3 or 4 people there, and I had one of my older shirts that says Curtis Coleman for governor when I said Curtis Coleman. Right. Well, now it's a work shirt, and I thought, well, I'm going to grab a quick sandwich and then go back to work. It's Saturday afternoon. And a gentleman walked up to me and says, "Well, who's running for governor now?" I think our governor now is running for president. I thought, no. I said, no. I said, this is an old shirt. No. Oh, yeah, he just announced for president, blah, blah. And I thought, wait a minute.
Curtis Coleman?
He's still thinking that Mike Huckabee was governor.
Oh, my gosh. Oh, poor guy.
I thought, we had, I think we're on our second one since.
Yeah, you might want to wake up, and it's a new decade.
Well, that just set us back about 12 years.
Yeah. Somebody needs to read the newspaper. Listen to the radio or something.
So that, people are not really informed.
No,
thinking that our governor that was just elected is now running for president. Well, the one we just elected is running for president already.
No, not so much.
No. However, our governor is in France right now.
Okay.
Celebrating Arkansas, and there's a good opportunity to bring some foreign investments into Arkansas in the way of jobs.
That's wonderful. The governor, our previous governor, I think 2 years ago, visited the Czech Republic.
Did he really?
Yeah, and I think it was a gun manufacturing deal.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know what came of that, but I think it's good for our governor to go abroad and investigate bringing good commerce. And
I know he was in what's considered Silicon Valley in California, bringing some clean jobs, clean manufacturing.
Right.
And
that's important stuff for our economy. So. And Arkansas is a rural state, 3 million people. We've got room to grow. So,
well, and there's been a lot of controversy. I looked at this, they called special session about using this money for the Lockheed plant down in southern Arkansas. And, of course, there's going to be some opposition. And I'm not really in favor of using taxpayer money to fund a private business, which Lockheed's publicly traded, but still, basically a private business.
Right.
But the bottom line is we've got to jumpstart it somewhere.
Yeah.
We've got to jumpstart it somewhere. And we see the opportunity of a vehicle manufacturing process in Arkansas.
Wow.
See, that's going to replace the Humvee. Now, if the Lockheed plant in Arkansas gets that contract, 600
That's huge.
Yeah, but, they say, well, it's only 600 jobs. Well, let's look at that, though. That's what they're going to hire.
Those people are paying taxes too.
Well, sure.
They're going to pay income tax.
But then you've got trucking.
Yeah.
You've got rail.
Fuel.
You've got the barge industry there at Port of Memphis.
Yeah. It's a big deal.
It affects a lot of people. And
those people at lunchtime have to go eat. And, I mean, it just spreads through the economy.
And so the money will not be appropriated if they don't get the contract. So it's just kind of we're going to hold your foundation up here so you can get your feet wet.
Yeah.
And once you start wading in the water,
So what will replace the Humvee? What is it called?
It's some type of vehicle that's to be manufactured. But see, this is one of the plants that could be awarded that contract.
Yeah.
Now, the second factor. More than likely, with Arkansans working there, it will be a successful plant because they need the work. They want the steady income.
Yeah.
And it's going to be a shot in the arm to that economy.
Right.
With Missouri trying to do right to work, that means that we're already right to work state. Where Detroit's trying to save some money, well, look what happened to Volkswagen in Tennessee.
Yeah.
And Mazda, I think, in Mississippi. Those are right to work states.
Yeah.
And so
used to be called at will, though, didn't it?
Yeah, at will.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But here's something else they told me about that. When they want to look to save some money in labor, you can still pay a decent wage without having all the crazy bells and whistles hung on some of the union contracts.
Unions, yeah.
And so they say, hey, well, Arkansas did this. Look what they did down here. Why don't we consider? I mean, there's a spot in Arkansas, Dyess, Arkansas, where the biggest attraction is a restored house of Johnny Cash.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what they're relying on to get any revenue at all.
Wow.
To have this is where Johnny Cash lived. Yeah. Pay $10 to walk through the house. That's really what and that's sad. I mean.
And I think if we could get some of those things into Arkansas and those people would come here and see just how beautiful a state we have and how good the people are and the resources that we have, I think.
Well, Volkswagen told the union to, hey, bye.
Oh, really? Volkswagen did?
Over in, I forget what city in Tennessee. Somebody knows, send me a thing on Facebook. Tell me what city that was. But it was about 6 months ago, perhaps, maybe. I think right around Christmas, they were looking at a union vote, and they voted it down.
Yeah.
And, look what we did for Detroit. We can see what you did for Detroit.
Yeah. Look at Detroit. Why don't we?
Yeah, there's your example.
Yeah, what a ghost town. It's, man, especially in some of the pictures that you see of Detroit, of neighborhoods, where people just fled out of there. Just, I don't know how many thousands of empty houses. I mean, let's face it, Dale. When you're going to pay somebody $24.50 an hour to sit in a chair and put one bolt, one screw on or one bolt together, nut and a bolt, on an assembly line, those kind of costs are just.
Well, it's like years ago. You're probably old enough to remember this, when the conversion from leaded gas to unleaded gas.
Oh yes.
Okay. Leaded gas was like 55 cents a gallon.
Uh-huh.
Unleaded gas was 80 cents a gallon. And people were knocking out the difference in the gas tank so they could put the regular gas in and cutting the catalytic converters off to save the difference of money.
Right.
Somebody listed in a letter to the editor, instead of keeping the higher price on the gas you want everybody to run, why don't you raise the price on the gas you don't want them to use and lower the price on the one you want them to use? So swap your prices.
Yeah.
Well, the same thing is true with this minimum wage. They said, well, we can't make a living at $8 an hour. Let's go to $15. Why don't you lower the retail prices of everything?
$15 an hour for minimum wage.
Yeah.
Man, I think that would have some big time negative effects, though, don't you?
Yeah,
I mean, if a Big Mac is $7.50, people will just start passing on that.
Yeah, I know.
I would think, but it's supply and demand. I mean, that's how our system works.
I was visiting with a gentleman named Douglas Holtz Eakin, and he holds a doctorate in economics, I think, from Princeton.
Yeah.
And the last time I visited with John Bozeman by phone, he said, we still consult with him because he's a very well-known and respected economist in Washington, D.C. And he says, the two things we need to accomplish, we need that Keystone Pipeline open, and that's going to show not only the Middle East, but Venezuela and other countries that we're going to have our own oil.
Yeah.
Plus the fact it's against the law for the United States to export any of our own oil.
Okay.
We can import, but we can't export.
Right.
And he says, what do you think would happen if we started exporting as much as 10 million barrels a day? He says the other economies would just flatten out.
Oh, yeah.
He says, think about it. He says, whether you're Saudi Arabia or Kuwait or Libyan oil, Venezuela, Russian oil.
Well, you know, what's so strange to me about and I'm certainly not a businessman or an oil guy, but, you know, these people that jump up and down about the Keystone Pipeline, is it safer for the environment to take that oil and stick it on a train, on rail cars that are moving at 55, 60 miles an hour that come across multiple auto vehicle crossings and cross multiple rivers and bridges and by airports? And I mean, you know, if you could just use your brain for a second, just think if you could take that train.
And what people don't know,
and immobilize it and make
Keystone Pipeline's pumping oil.
Oh,
you look at the map, and we get Keystone oil to Wood River and Patoka, Illinois. Through Winnipeg, Manitoba.
Yeah.
And Calgary.
But then it has to be trucked, right?
Well, sure, that or rail.
I mean, you know, and then we stick it on barges in our rivers where we get water. You know?
Look at the coast of California.
You know, I get so sick of that sometimes. People that are so eyeball deep in that eco religion, and they just forget common sense for their narrative. And, you know, it's just unbelievable when you think about the risks of putting oil on a train or a tanker truck on the interstate or on a barge on the river. Yeah, that's really safe at 75 miles an hour versus, you know, a clean pipeline that can deliver it safely.
Built to withstand a 5.5 Richter scale earthquake.
Yeah.
It's got like an old Chevrolet drive shaft carrier bearing out there, you know.
Guess what? Trucks are not constructed for that.
No.
Neither are barges or, you know, train cars, things like that. So it just, you know, it's symbolism over substance. You know, they want to talk about some obscure owl or some sparrow that won't be hurt at all by a clean pipeline. I mean, you look at pictures of some of these pipelines and there's wildlife everywhere.
Sure.
It's not like it's just vomiting the oil out onto the ground. I mean, it's in a secure, they use helicopters to fly the pipeline daily to check it out. I mean, come on.
Well, then you got the EPA. The EPA is now wanting to shut down clean coal plants. We've got two in Arkansas, like the one down in Hope.
Yeah.
Where the EPA has verified it's 100% clean.
Yeah. Well, these are the same people that buy into the whole climate change, man-made climate change, global warming fraud that's been hoisted upon us, you know, and the stats don't even support that. I mean, the Earth hasn't warmed for over 17 years.
Well,
it's just stupid.
I can bring that up. I visited with a gentleman named Leighton Stewart out of Texas. In fact, here's some good articles on global warming from the University of Alabama that will...
It's a scam.
Oh, yeah.
Absolute scam. Yeah. And
Leighton Stewart was, he's a geologist that had worked with NASA. And they had these probes going around the Earth for many years prior to a lot of the space crafts from Mercury, Gemini, Apollo on into the Space Shuttle program. On the average, they cannot find the average mean temperature across the world changing much more than 1.5 degrees either side of average, being around 74 degrees.
Yeah.
Now, I've had them on 2 or 3 times. And here's something else. The EPA is saying, well, there's too much carbon dioxide in the air. The Earth is 40% greener now than what it was in 1974.
Because it is run by God.
Exactly.
I mean, I hate
what
to...
do we exhale?
I mean, I'm not saying that, listen, I'm not saying that we can't have clean energy, that we shouldn't be good stewards of the earth. I mean, I think the Bible teaches that for people of faith. I'm not saying that we shouldn't be clean and keep our trash, but for crying out loud, we're not heating up the earth. It's ridiculous. And there's no evidence. And the evidence that they have found has been debunked time after time. And the mainstream media will not recognize that fact. It is a political scam driven by money, not by science.
Exactly.
Sorry.
If you like,
that's one of my...
If you support global warming, quit driving a car because your catalytic converter's at
least
look
at these
1,200 degrees.
Clowns in their kayaks that were surrounding that Shell rig the other day. And guess what? Guess what made your plastic kayak, you idiot.
Oil.
It's oil. Yeah, petroleum products built your paddle, you imbecile.
Polyethylene.
And some of these with their PETA vegan T-shirts, all the while they have leather hippie bags and wear leather shoes and leather belts.
Driving a '68 Volkswagen with flowers on it.
Don't eat a cow, but you can wear a cow on your foot. I mean, those people, I just can't take it, man. I just,
anticipate the phone call from Senator Tom Cotton. Stick around. We'll be right back. (7:35). We're joined now by our Senator Tom Cotton. Sir, are you there?
Good morning, Dale. Great to be on with you.
Senator, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
I think I've lost the call.
Okay. You going to try to get it back? Or?
Yeah, let's see. Senator, are you on the line?
Yeah, Dale, can you hear me?
Yeah, we've lost the call.
We'll see if you can get it back. We during the break, Dale and I were discussing the extensive experience that he's had in the military. He initially, as an attorney, was able to go into the military, and he went up through the ranks instead of just coming in as an officer.
Good morning, Senator.
Hello, Dale. Can you hear me?
Senator, are you there?
Yes, Dale. Can you hear me?
Getting the phone feed.
Well, as you want to try to work on that, what I was talking about was his extensive experience in the U.S. military. He's been to Afghanistan, Iraq, and chose to take the long route to being an officer, and I think that speaks well for his character. So I think we've got him on the line now. So I'm sorry, I am not an engineer, so there's not a whole lot. Okay, I think we got it now. If we can just patch him through. Now.
Senator, can you hear us at all? We're not getting anything. Senator, can you hear us?
Yes. Hello.
I thought I could hear him.
Oh.
Hello.
Oh, there he is. There you are.
We had a switch on the wrong position here. Okay, right. Senator Tom Cotton, I'm sorry for the technical malfunction.
It's great to be on with you. Now, I could hear you all along. There's a provision in the Senate rules that if you say something derogatory towards one of your colleagues, speak on the floor for the rest of the day. I guess you just have to listen to them and run you down. Fortunately, I haven't done that yet, but that must be what it's like.
Well, you always have to. I'm always told you have to assume that every mic is hot. So we were talking earlier, Senator. I wanted to thank you for your response to my 10-year-old son. He came home from school one day and said, Dad, I don't like this part testing and this Common Core stuff. And I said, well, you don't. He said, no, I don't. He said, and I'm writing Senator Tom Cotton. And I said, what? I didn't even know he knew who you were. So he sat down and wrote you a letter, and I mailed it off. And in about 2 weeks, I got a response from your office. And that just tickled him to death. So you're doing something right because 10-year-olds know you.
Very happy to do so. Always happy to hear from the people I serve and try to get back to them promptly. Sometimes we're a little delayed by the screening for biotoxins at the Capitol, but whether they're 10 years old or 90 years old, we're always eager to hear from our candidates.
It was a simple letter from a 9-year-old in Mountain Home, Arkansas. No toxins involved.
Those are some of the best when kids write in their own handwriting.
Oh, it was.
Well, Senator, we'll just give you the microphone. A few things that I've covered here in Mountain Home, a few call-ins on some shows about the EPA and what could happen to our electric bills if they get their way on these coal-fired plants. And then, of course, we're looking at Cuba and some water regulations. What's going on?
Well, there are two very troubling developments at the EPA, both both on our electricity rates in Arkansas and private property rights. The EPA is moving forward with regulations that would essentially cause most coal-fired utility plants to shut down over time. And in Arkansas, we get over half of all of our electricity from coal. We have some of the most advanced modern coal-burning utility plants in the country. And if the EPA gets its way, our electricity rates are going to go up. That means that working families are going to find it harder to make ends meet, to heat or to cool their homes each month. And businesses are going to face higher costs. So that's money that they couldn't be putting into wages or new jobs. The second regulation that's very worrisome is the so-called Waters of the U.S. regulation. The federal government obviously has an important role to play in our constitutional system in regulating navigable waters, rivers like the Arkansas River, the Mississippi River. Right. They don't play a role in regulating small ponds or even puddles on our farms or ranches, in our forest, or even in our backyards. And I don't want to see every Arkansas family and Arkansas business have to go to the EPA to get a permit that should just be issued from the local city government. Yeah. So we're working to make sure that neither of those regulations move forward, that the EPA makes its decisions based on sound science, and that the costs are justified by the benefits.
Huh, interesting. Wow. I don't know, do you know, gentlemen, I don't know if he's in New York or Washington, Douglas Holtz-Eakin, doctorate in economics, I think, out of Princeton. We had him on the program, and we were talking about exporting American oil, and I didn't realize it was against the law. And I think we were visiting with Senator Bozeman that he supported exporting American oil that would drop some of these oil prices. Your thoughts on that, perhaps?
Yes, there are restrictions on the export of petroleum products going back to the oil shortages of the 1970s, but the world has changed radically since then, in significant part because America is now the largest producer of petroleum products in the world, bigger than Saudi Arabia, bigger than Russia, thanks to American ingenuity in the production of oil and gas from shale formations. We should be proud of that. We should be thankful that those resources are in the ground underneath our feet, and that we have the kind of economy and the kind of innovation that helps us get it out. And I think we should move. I think we should move to lift some of those restrictions so we can begin to export some of that oil and gas. Oil and gas is a commodity. It's bought on a global market. That would mean more jobs for producers right in Arkansas. It would also mean lower prices at the pump for Arkansas families, mean lower cost of goods because so many of our goods are shipped over highways. And it would help our allies overseas, countries like Ukraine, for instance, or the Baltic states that depend too much on oil or gas from adversarial nations like Russia. So I do believe that we should lift some of those restrictions, create jobs here, make the world safer and more secure.
You know, Senator, this is Sam. If you listen to mainstream media, you would never know that the facts that you just mentioned about petroleum products in the United States of America. You would never know that. I mean, I think a lot of people would fail that on a trivia game, that we are producing more petroleum products than Saudi Arabia, and I think that's fantastic. I just wonder why we don't hear about that in the mainstream.
Well, a lot of media elites in Washington and New York are opposed to fossil fuels of any kind. That's why the EPA is trying to essentially shut down coal-fired plants. That's why so many states are trying to ban or heavily regulate hydraulic fracturing, which even the EPA has acknowledged is safe, because they want to move beyond oil and gas and coal. I'm all in favor of alternative sources like wind and solar power, but they have to be economically viable. They have to be able to produce energy on their own merits without subsidies from taxpayers that could be going into more productive uses, like funding our military or funding Border Patrol or funding basic scientific research. And we need to have the ability to provide constant, steady power to our homes and to our businesses, which you can't do if the wind's not blowing or it's not sunny. But too many liberal elites don't accept those basic facts.
I would hope, Senator, that we learned our lesson with Solyndra.
Sometimes folks say the government shouldn't pick winners and losers. I agree with that proposition, except I would go a step further and say the government shouldn't pick losers. The government doesn't need to pick winners because a winning idea can win in the marketplace. It'll get a loan. It'll get customers. It doesn't need to go to the government for a handout.
Absolutely.
Senator, your thoughts on the ISIS, what I call the ISIS crisis. Sometimes I think that Bruce Jenner is getting more publicity than the ISIS situation, but this is a serious factor. You've been in these countries firsthand, and I want you to remind our listeners exactly your experience in the Middle East and Afghanistan and the role you play right now, and the fact the president is sending troops back into these countries.
Well, thanks, Dale, very much for the kind words. I did serve in Iraq in 2006 as a platoon leader in the 101st Airborne. I was stationed in Baghdad. We faced the precursor to the Islamic State, Al-Qaeda in Iraq, in my specific area in Baghdad. That group was defeated in 2011, according to Barack Obama's own CIA deputy director. But because President Obama withdrew all troops in 2011 against the better judgment of his military commanders, and he did nothing in Syria when a civil war started there against the brutal Assad regime, Iran's only Arab ally, it gave Al-Qaeda in Iraq the space and the time to regroup in Syria and Iraq, to grow, to become the Islamic State, and now it's not a terrorist organization anymore. It is a terrorist army that is heavily armed, well-financed, that controls area larger than Great Britain, and every day is trying to launch attacks against the United States by recruiting people online or sending them back overseas. We have to confront the Islamic State, and we have to defeat them. It's not just a problem over there. It's a problem for our core security right here in the United States. And the president has a goal, which is fine, to defeat the Islamic State, but he has no strategy. And we saw that last week when he just added a few hundred more troops without changing the strategy, without adding any kind of new additional assets, resources, skills. And I just don't see the commitment of the resources we need to defeat the Islamic State from this president.
What should we be doing? I mean, what's an answer to this? Is it do we take military airstrikes? Do we put boots on the ground?
Well, it's a mixture of things. Combat is kind of like a football team, and to make it relatable to folks who haven't been on the front lines. It's hard to win with just a passing game. You need a passing game and a running game, effective special teams, and a good defense. They all work in harmony or in concert together.
Right.
So there is no one silver bullet. You can't pass your way to victory, just like you can't use airstrikes solely to achieve victory. We need to increase the pace of airstrikes. We also need more forward air controllers on the ground at the battalion or brigade level with Iraqi forces to make those airstrikes more effective, so our pilots and allied pilots can discriminate between friend and foe in a dense urban environment.
Oh.
We need a few more special operations forces to help train and work with Iraqi forces and Sunni tribal groups at the battalion level, exactly as we did in 2007 and 2008 when we beat al-Qaeda in Iraq. We need more logistics experts at the brigade and the division level to make sure that troops on the front lines are not dying for lack of ammunition while pallets and crates of ammunition are in the rear area. So these are all ways that we can provide specialized capabilities that truly the United States alone has to stop the Islamic State as it advances towards Baghdad.
Sounds like we're trying to win this with a deflated football, aren't we?
Well,
yeah, wow. I mean, we are, and again, I would go back to the surge. When I was on the front lines in 2006, right before the surge, it was clear that we were losing. Al-Qaeda in Iraq, Shiite militant groups, other foreign fighters, they weren't advancing, but we weren't making progress. And in war, if you're not advancing, then you're losing.
So where are they getting
but
the money?
It wasn't just.
Let
me finish my thought. It wasn't just adding 30,000 more troops. If we had added 30,000 more troops and not changed our strategy, we wouldn't have succeeded. We added those troops in order to change the strategy, and we moved from merely focusing on training to focusing on counterinsurgency. And that's what we have to do with fighting the Islamic State. The president's approach so far is failing, whether he puts in 400 troops or 4,000 more troops. If he doesn't change approaches so we can actually focus on defeating the Islamic State and rolling them up not only in Iraq and Syria, then we're not going to win this war.
What really concerns me is about the current strategy by the president is the fact that it appears to me, from what I've been able to learn, that we may actually be arming people, sending arms to people that may turn them against our own guys later on, and that really concerns me because we've seen that before.
Well, the biggest concern we've seen right now is that vehicles or weapons that the Iraqi army has are being abandoned and therefore obtained by the Islamic State.
Yeah.
That's in part because the Iraqi army on the front lines either doesn't have basic resources like simple bullets, because they don't have a good logistics system that we could be advising them on helping, or the Islamic State is using novel battlefield techniques like vehicle bombs the size of the Oklahoma City bombing from 1995 to break through Iraqi defenses, which, again, we could help offset if we had that small contingent of troops with those specialized skills working at the battalion level.
Senator, we're down to about a minute and a half. We have to end the conversation. We want to thank you for being on the program today. Your final thoughts, Senator?
Well, as always, I just want to thank everyone in your listening audience for their support, for their prayers, for their well wishes. I'm working every day in Washington to make sure that Arkansans have the best chance to live a life of their choosing, with greater opportunities, with more prosperity, to give their kids and their grandkids a better chance than they had in life, and also to make sure that our country remains safe and secure and a leader of the free world. Every day I'm going to be working to do that, and every day I have your best interest in mind. If you need to contact me, please give us a call at 202-224-8255. 888-2353, or just go to our website at cotton.senate.gov. And we'll respond to you whether you're 90 years old or whether you're 10 years old.
Thank you, Senator.
Senator Tom Cotton, thank you so much.
Great to be on with you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Be right back. $7.53.
Wow, that was an impressive conversation. He is armed with a lot of information. I didn't even hear him say one time. He really knew what he was talking about. And with a record like that, too,
just
somebody that
every time I visited with Senator Cotton, I've been impressed. Very, very militarily disciplined.
Yeah. Well, when somebody jumps out of airplanes, they're probably not too afraid of questions. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Well, when you have to do what he's done in Iraq and Afghanistan, I wouldn't. Right. I don't think even
I didn't realize he was on the front lines during the surge, 2006. That's pretty impressive. A lot of respect to all our veterans, regardless of what political party they're in. Anybody that will put on the uniform and go serve, man, they have all of my respect. So, and I think it's wonderful that we have politicians who have those kinds of backgrounds. Mm-hmm. It used to be the standard, and as we can see now, in many places, it's your political leanings and not your true background and experience that get you elected. So it's good to see that there's still people like that willing to serve.
And the senator's a new daddy.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Congratulations to him.
Late March, I think, the little boy was born.
Yeah,
his wife.
Right. So that's wonderful.
They're doing well. About another minute and a half, Sam. We've got this finished up.
I think we wrapped it up. We didn't get to talk about a whole lot of police matters, but there are other things pressing right now. So there'll be plenty of that.
Very simple with police matters. Obey the law. If you get pulled over, be polite.
Right. I saw a deal on Facebook the other day. It says, you don't like your interactions with police, how about obeying the law?
There you go. Very simple.
Yeah, right.
Very simple.
You won't have a bad interaction with the police if you're not breaking the law. So, that's good advice, I think, especially with what just happened in Kentucky with the officer that was attacked with a flagpole. We may want to talk about that, in an upcoming show. But there are even those saying that he shouldn't have shot the man when the guy was going after him with a metal pole.
Yeah.
Overhead swings towards his head, and he was forced to shoot the suspect in Louisville, Kentucky. And, I guess cops are supposed to just stand around and get their head bashed in now, or I don't know what they expect them to do.
Well, and that'll give them a chance to protest and break windows and set fire. And,
yeah, exactly. But thank God that this one was filmed on a video camera that was outside of a business.
And the police was just standing there talking to the gentleman.
Yeah, you've seen the video.
Yeah, I saw the video,
I mean, it was... the police officer 100% in the right, but there are still those voices out there that will say it was excessive.
And I think they wanted to protest in Dallas about the shooting the guy that wanted to bomb the police.
Yeah,
oh my gosh,
he shot up the police station for crying. He had
holes in the
weapons in the van, an armored van,
pipe bombs and everything.
Yeah, it's just
There's the theme song.
The climate has changed. You bet. All right.
Thank you, Sam, for being here. For Senator Tom Cotton for calling in. We'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.